Hey everybody, it is Blasted or Stash Hits. We are back with a special edition. We are with Mike Tanner and Greg Smith of Junior Braves of the Apocalypse. And we're going to go ahead and jump into, we got Pocan Joe as well as Spectacular Sparta Grandpa with his wee little beard. Go ahead and jump into, we got who is that? Is that you, Joe? That's very professional. But yeah, if first time catching the show, what we do on this show, we do an independent creator spotlight. We try to find somebody who's creating books out there and give them a place to talk about their projects, and that's what we're doing tonight. Joe, do you want to start off with the first question for anybody? You want me to start off?
Well, I'll go ahead and launch the first one off. So we were sitting here and we were talking in the pre-show, and I found it very fascinating because you have two writers on this, and this is not unheard of in the comic book industry. But I think the question is how do two writers, and then you have this artist that's just kind of just thrown in there too. How do two artists that have very different ideas? Because I mean, your backgrounds are somewhat. I'm not going to say they're extremely different, but two very different backgrounds. So how does that creative process work when you have two people, different backgrounds, different parts of the Pacific West there? How does that, how do you not constantly fight with each other? Like, I've been married to my wife 21 years, and I mean, I like her, but to say that we got along the whole time, come on.
Well, we do disagree sometimes. I mean, Greg still really wants us to have the kids go to a hot dog factory, which I have to shut down every time we outline a book. So I'm like, why are they going to a hot dog factory, Greg? I don't know. But yeah, it's definitely not a challenge, but you do it's a dance. Like you work, you're both trying to think of what the story is demanding you do. And then I don't want to say it writes itself, but we know we're creating problems for each other and fixing each other's problems, I think is a good way to put it.
Yeah. And we've been writing together for, we've been doing this for just about 20 years.
Yeah, we're very old. It's been about 20 years.
Yeah.
Because we met in college at Evergreen, and started working together on comedy sketches, and then over the years went to writing TV scripts, and then we kind of luckily when you live in two different places, you rely a lot on technology, and luckily the technology has gotten better to allow us to work remotely with each other.
So with that said, when a disagreement does happen, and I'm not going to say you guys fight it out, that's obviously not it, but is it more of a I'll give you this if you give me this type of negotiation?
Well, I have the screenwriting software, so I have final say because I'm the one actually typing it up.
No.
Sad but true.
So in this particular, the way you have this set up is more like the creative idea. Hey, let's make them go into a hot dog factory versus, well, we kind of already planned out the story this way. Is that more the relationship?
When we start to outline things out, we throw it all out there and we kind of bounce those ideas back and forth. And yeah, I might say hot dog factory, and Mike might say no veto, no hot dog factory. And we come up with a different idea, like maybe a hot air balloon, and then that gets vetoed.
No hot air balloon.
But we keep coming up with different. I say we, and I mean me. I come up with weirder ideas that kind of fall into line. But then we come to an agreement on where that fits into the framework and the story, and where it really does, where the characters what's really going to play and make sense, right? So
yeah, we'll have like Greg will be like, what if we had them ride a duck boat at some point? And we're like, yeah, okay, let's do that. So what brings them to riding a duck boat? And so we think of kind of not set pieces, but kind of things we want to have the kids do, and then we kind of craft ourselves into that becoming part of the story, which and also all the examples that I think of are from books that aren't out yet, so I don't want to spoil anything. But I'm like, yeah, because we've been working on this for a long time, so it's evolved and changed with different ideas.
Sometimes it's also taking just running around town or in the areas with a camera and taking some pictures of some things to see what works, and throwing those ideas back and forth. We'll just say like book one, we had some great ideas about how the kids would escape from the church, and that's a really good idea, but also it's one of those things. It's highly unbelievable and slightly dangerous. So that's one of those things where you also have to come into terms where you call in other people and resources to just kind of double check and make sure. One of my friends is an adventure tourist runner, or he used to run an adventure tourism business, and just double checking and asking like, okay, so if you had a zip line that was set up between this point to this point, would this be functional? Could you do this into a lake? Could you do something similar off of a large building? And, checking for all those things and saying, yeah, I mean, it's possible. And then having Zach go, can I draw that? And then him coming back and saying, yeah,
the zipline escape from the church is a great example, because we used to call it the DuckTales part, where we were like, we knew, like between Greg and I, we knew it was a little dicey in terms of like reality, like the original version that we had scripted. And then so Greg talked to like his friend about zip lines, and Zach was like, well, at that point Zach was working on it, so he's like, oh, what if I had this? Like, he's the one who was like, well, what if they do like a drop down into a dumpster? And so that, like, us kind of crowdsourcing and with Zach's input fixed that section, and we're like, oh, okay, that's how they're going to do it. That made us go like, oh, because it originally wasn't a zip line. It wasn't originally Johnny like lassoing a thing and doing the zip line thing, but we figured out that that's how they were going to escape the church. Spoiler for book one. But that also made us go like, wait, we need to go back earlier in the book and add a zip line. Like, so, and that also plays into a thing from DuckTales that I call launch pads brownies, which was it's just a writing trope of story, like a storytelling trope, is you set up something that seems incredibly minor earlier in the story, and then when it matters, it pays off. So that made us go back and write the zipline scene when they're up at the mountain for the camp out. Like, so that kind of that fluid process. That I think is also a great benefit of us doing it as graphic novels, not as single issues, is that the whole thing is crafted. The whole 200-page book is written and being worked on. So if something comes up like that, we have time to fix it. Because if, like, say, Junior Braves came out as a monthly, and the church escape doesn't happen until issue 3, issue 1's already been drawn and is probably like on its way to a printer, so we can't it's too late to fix it. It's too late to go back and be like, make it look like we're more clever than we actually are.
Great. Huey?
Okay, to kind of go back a little bit, we didn't really talk about the book very much. You want to give us a premise of the book and maybe your history into it? I know, Greg, you are an Eagle Scout, and like, what is your influence into the book as well as Mike's?
Sure. I guess where do we want to start? Do we want to start?
Should I do my con pitch?
Do the con pitch.
Okay, the con pitch. Okay.
We'll do the back and forthies.
All right. Junior Braves the Apocalypse is a young adult survival horror graphic novel series about the Junior Braves, who are an outdoor wilderness group. Oh man, it's been so long since I've been to a con. So my pitch the Junior Braves are a group of outdoor scouts, not Boy Scouts, but like the Boy Scouts, that go on a week-long camping trip where they learn all sorts of fun outdoor wilderness skills. When they return to their hometown, the zombie mutant apocalypse has happened. Their town is destroyed. Their families are missing. Everyone else they come across is either a hideous zombie mutant or has been driven insane. So now they have to use all of their Junior Brave skills to survive in this dangerous world.
That's when you guys do that pitch. You do all the sound effects and
Nice. You just need to get that on video by itself and use it as an intro to this.
We've had 5 years now to perfect it, so we feel pretty good. So how the book came about, I'll say, like, Greg and I were writing partners. trying to work in TV, and then that's a whole different story. But I also had an interesting hobby where I was a referee for the LA Derby Dolls. I was a roller derby referee, and our league photographer was a cool guy named Charlie Chu. He's like, "Oh, I'm leaving. I'm moving to Portland." And I was like, "Oh, what are you doing there?" He's like, "I'm going to go be an editor for Oni Press." Like, he was a Hollywood guy. He was like a Hollywood development guy. He's like, "I'm going to go be an editor for Oni Press." I was like, "Oh yeah, I know Oni. I did a story in their roller derby anthology." He's like, "You write comics?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "I need pitches. Like, can you send me pitches? I need stuff to bring with me." So Charlie and I were riding in the car together when I get a text from Greg.
And I'm like, and the preface of this is that that month I had broke my S1 through L5 vertebrae. I just basically shattered my back. Had a stilt accident, so I was laid up. I was mangled, and I had nothing better to do than just text Mike all the time. So I think I blew up his phone at weird hours all the time, and I didn't expect anything back most of the time. But I text him, "Boy Scouts in the apocalypse, zombies."
Yeah, I was like, Boy Scouts go on a week-long camping trip. When they come back, zombies. And I got that text while riding in the car with Charlie, and I read it out loud. And Charlie just said, like, "Write that up as a pitch. That's amazing." And so we worked on a pitch, and we pitched it. It was one of the projects he brought with him into Oni. So I always say, like, we're incredibly lucky. Like, our entire career in comics is based around me having an interesting hobby and being in the right place at the right time. Luckily, we had developed the skills where we could pull it off, where we wrote, like, now I recently reread our original pitch.
Oh, yeah.
It's rough. I would not submit that to anyone now. And it ends up, it's very different. Our original pitch was very different. It was going to be Boy Scouts.
It was Boy Scouts.
The climax of book 2 was actually going to be the climax of the whole series.
Yeah.
Like the strip mall and like the police cops, and like the Corporaco guys. It was a very different story. And it was like it wasn't just like zombie mutant apocalypse. It was like a perfect storm of like, it was zombies. It was like natural disasters. It's like we had it so where there's a like deep drilling in Alaska, like opens up a new fault line and causes a massive earthquake, which causes like a huge tidal wave that like enters Puget Sound at just the right angle to wipe out Seattle. It was just like, it was this huge, like overdone.
All the first responders were at Safeco Field for
oh, that's right. First Responders Appreciation Day at Safeco Field when it's hit by the tidal wave.
So they're all wiped out, and the only people that can help are the only first responders that can actually be on the scene are the National Guard, which they're brought in like all willy nilly, and they don't have all the resources because everything's been shifted off of FMLB or Fort Lewis McCord. So. To other places.
It was very complicated.
I've never seen two guys more cheerful about doom and gloom in my entire life.
It was it's a lot of fun. It's very cathartic right now.
Yeah. I think at
the
time,
so
like when this was all like coming to fruition, it was like at the height of like all those crazy like doom and gloom sci-fi movies.
2012, right?
Yeah,
like,
and my dad was like, "You guys could write a better movie than this." And that was like okay, we could.
Yeah. So to give you guys a timeline, that all happened in early 2010. And book 1 came out 2015, to give you an idea of like the long process of comics for anyone who doesn't know. It took a very long time to kind of get going, and then to get, a 200 and something page graphic novel out.
Yeah.
But also with like regular day jobs.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm sure that would really push out that timeline. Yeah.
Yeah.
See that. Mike, what do we got going on in the chat?
Samuel David's in there, and he was talking about their pitch. He thought that was pretty cool. And that's the only one who's commented so far.
If you have any questions that you want us to ask these great comic book creators, don't forget to put them into the chat. We'll make sure they get that first come, first serve.
I will talk shit about anybody.
So
If you bring it up in the chat, I'll do it.
I'll be nice.
These writers seem pretty cool. I'm not going to say anything about anybody else. I'm just going to leave it there.
Want to know what I really think about Jack Kirby? Ask in the chat.
Oh wow.
he just said the book sounds really good. I have to go get this now. You know I'm a Boy Scout myself, so Samuel David.
That was something we really wanted to do, was put like real stuff that Boy Scouts like, or any like wilderness like interested kid would find useful or helpful.
Yeah.
Me and Huey were talking before the show last week in the after show there after wrestling. We were talking about the show here. And we were like, who was a scout? And of course, he was a scoutmaster. I was in Boy Scouts myself. I stopped when I got the when I was done after the cool merit badges. Like at one point, they wanted me to like do bookkeeping or something. I was like, nah, I'm done. But it still amazes me today, even the skills I learned in Boy Scouts. I was an Army Ranger, and I did that for 17 and a half years. And a lot of the skills that I would use as an Army Ranger that I learned from Boy Scouts, people were just amazed by it. They go like,
it's amazing the types of things that you do pick up in scouting organization, any scouting organization, be it Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, Cub Scouts, Explorer Scouts, and anything like that. The types of things that they teach you and the types of things that they instill in you, it definitely does drive somebody to continue through with a various set of skills. And I'd say a vision, if you will. Like, it's not. Hopefully, it doesn't sound too choosy, but it's like it gives me a definite like desire to help people when I can, and definitely a willingness to do my best daily.
Definitely, I can definitely agree with that. Speaking of the Boy Scouts, I noticed as I read the reviews, and I read book 1, and I read the summary of book 2. I plan on reading the whole thing. I'm sorry, but I will read the whole thing. I noticed that there's been a change in verbiage from troop to tribe. Does that have anything to do with the Boy Scouts?
The BSA is a very litigious organization. It's
good word, by the way. Very good word.
And one thing is, like I mentioned earlier, we really did want it to be our original pitch is Boy Scouts of the Apocalypse. So we wanted it to be like Boy Scouts and tied in and like official. And in some ways that would have been, that's very interesting. But it also would really tie us down to like what like the methodology of the Scouts is, and like a lot of the just like you'd have to kind of follow what the rules are. So losing the like, the coolness of like, they're actually Boy Scouts and it's actually a Boy Scout thing. It's fiction based around Boy Scouts. Creating the Junior Braves freed us up to create our own mythology and kind of have our own thing to say. Like if we had done Boy Scouts, we wouldn't have the extra layer of like characters talking about appropriation and like the fun, weird, like bits of, of Scout, like Tribe Master of Padre, like getting stuff wrong. And Johnny being there to be like, or Johnny being able to like, I don't know what that is. That's not a thing my tribe does.
Right.
And so it freed us up to have like an extra layer to our storytelling, which I think is often something that people really like gravitate towards. It's a YA fun kids fighting zombies, but also like not to be like we're saying something with this book. It's that there's an extra layer that I think people really get into.
I like that concept because it does have a little bit more fun with the whole scouting concept, even if they're an adventurers group. But I think that's been used several times in these kind of situations. But I do have to ask a question. I noticed that in the book, you learn certain skills in there, and it looks very familiar to a Boy Scout handbook. How effective are those things? I tried 2 of them, and it worked. So I'm just wondering, was that purposely done?
Yes, there was definitely a purpose into building it up that way. So Zach and myself are both Eagle Scouts. David, our team kind of intern, I guess. He's kind of been around for shows and stuff like that in the Northwest area to help out. He's also in Eagle Scouts, bouncing those ideas and building up on the skill sets that are in the book that you see them utilizing and using. They're all things that we've researched to make sure that they do have the reality based. We also did pull things back. In book 2, we were going to do a whole section on CPR, but we want to make sure that as things change, medical things and other things, we did not want to put something in the book that either could change or cause somebody to do something incorrectly based on what they saw in a book and not being taught the right way. Reading something versus being taught the correct way, two different things. So we want to make sure that we pulled that, even though it's important to know first aid, we'll let a medical professional that's teaching someone to do that the correct way, to do that the correct way.
I really did like that. Like I said, I did try 2 of the little things in there.
It was the peanut butter and jelly sandwich, right?
I'm sorry?
Making the perfect peanut butter and jelly sandwich, right? You tried that one.
Was actually one of them. And I'll be honest with you, it is legit. Look, listen, right here, first time we're Blaster to Stash It. This may be a young adult's book or a young reader's book, but this is something that every adult can benefit from if you want to be a cool dad and a cool grandfather, just to know how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Give these cats $20 and get that book.
All right.
So you were talking about BSA. Did you guys go to BSA at all and talk to them, or you just kind of threw that off the table completely?
Greg, you do some stuff.
So I broached the conversation with people that are involved, and it was definitely something that we're kind of told to pump the brakes on, in the sense that it would not be received in the sense that we wanted it to be received in. There would be a lot of things that we'd have to do and or not do in the way that
they are very litigious.
And at the time frame in which we were trying to do this book, and when we were pitching this to Oni, and when Oni was trying to put this out, it was at a very different time frame for the BSA and a very different time frame in the world. So it might not have been received as it may have been received today. So, but that being said, we have had a lot of good reception from scouting organizations, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, and outdoor groups around I would say around the world, because we get emails from people all over the place telling us that they're involved in different groups and organizations that have picked up the book because it has that feel, and they like to read it. And we've had a lot of different troops and groups that have used it as a book that they've done for I would say, like, we've had a couple of troops read it together, pass it around and share it. I've had Girl Scout troops use it as their Girl Scout badge, and worked with them to do their badge, their comic book badge. So it's been kind of cool to be able to, even though we pulled back from scouting originally, to be pulled back into scouting with it. I've worked with a local troop here and done some stuff with the troop with the book itself. So it's kind of nice to see it not as a promotional item in that sense, but as a way to bridge the gap for reading, because we get a lot of young readers that don't want to read a big chunky book, but they're able to pick this up because they have that. I'm in Scouts, and these are kids that are doing things that I do, and okay, it looks fun and interesting, so I'll read it.
Yeah,
cool. In fact, Mike has a question in the chat right now, as a matter of fact. So we have actually some people that are interested in this.
Jock Yo popped in here, one of our longtime viewers. He said it's a really fun book. I discovered it from the Free Comic Book Day issue. Then Samuel David said, when was the Free Comic Book Day issue? Last year? So
that was actually 2015, because it was it was done as the Free Comic Book Day promotion before the first volume was out, as a good preview. Like they took actually the church section from the first book, because rather than the first like 22 pages, which wouldn't be that exciting, like just on its own, they did like the church action sequence. That being the Free Comic Book Day from Oni that year was huge for us.
Yeah.
And it's Yeah, it's I still have copies that I pull out at cons to like as a free giveaway or whatnot.
Nice.
Yeah, and so maybe we didn't make it for book 2, but maybe book 3 might get the free comic book day treatment. Fingers crossed.
So I have a whole bunch of old Scout memorabilia for being a Scoutmaster. I had an old Scoutmaster who gave me all of his stuff. He had Scoutmaster books from the 1940s and 50s. So it's great to go back and look at that stuff. You know, some of the stuff's changed quite a bit through scouting throughout the years. You know, I'm sure somewhere in those pages from the 1940s, there's like how to roll your own cigarette. I'm sure there's some crazy stuff back then that's not appropriate now. And I kind of see where Padre kind of fits in that group from this show, from the book, because he's bringing his rifle, you know, he's bringing his stuff. He's following Guide to Safe Scouting. He's not doing all this stuff. He's kind of an old school Scoutmaster. So that brings me to this question: were any of these characters based off anybody you knew as either going through Scouts or through you?
Before you answer that question, I just want to remind you the entire G.I. Joe series was based, in order to keep the writing correct, were based off of actual people with personalities. So no offense to anybody out there that's watching this. If he's like, hey, such and such is like such and such, just deal with it. You're a superstar now. There's your disclaimer.
I think it's fair to say that Mike, Zach, and I definitely pulled from the well of our youth to build these characters the best way we could from people we knew.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like Marvin in particular was largely inspired by a kid who was in my Cub Scout troop, who would always spend most of the den meetings like playing with a cat, like his pet cat. You're just supposed to be like that weird kid that a lot of troops had, who wasn't really there. Yeah, like who wasn't there for scouting, was there because probably their parent thought socialization was important. We lost a lot of like the weirdness of Marvin just because there's a lot of characters. But originally he was going to be a lot weirder. But he just reads like a weird, like a funny kid. But he was directly inspired by my weirdo kid in my my Cub Scout group.
And then in book 2, there's these 2 brothers. They're twins, and they definitely one of my high school friends who I was in Scouts with picked up the book, and he was like, "You put those kids in the book. Those are the boys." So like, there's definitely like there's things that we I guess subconsciously, like, we don't realize sometimes. We're like, oh yeah, no, that's where we talk about these things, we build characters up, and it's like definitely like this type of thing, like that it totally hits.
So you said subconsciously, but was there, when you were kind of going through this, it was like, yeah, this is this guy I know, it's got to be him? But is there a dart on the bullseye? Like, this is the guy, I remember him distinctly. This is how I write him.
And there's a character,
characters.
In book 1 is based entirely on a guy we went to college with.
Yeah, he's a dude we both knew. Like, it is dead on Keith. And
so much where I'm pretty sure if he saw the book, he'd recognize, like even I don't even think we told Zach what he looked like, but Zach drew him to look like, and he just happened to look. He looks like a Keith, you know.
He looks, yeah, and I bet you he would come up and he'd just like pat us both on the shoulders and be like, "Guys did me right."
I mean, there is, though, in the troop, and so you have the dynamics. You have the kid that doesn't like going to ski. He's like, oh God, do I really got to do this? Do I really got to sing this stupid song? Yeah. I mean, anybody who's been with scouting, maybe being a Scout Master, knows those kids. They get embarrassed when you get up there and start singing those songs from scouting. And you have the kid that's uber into scouting and wants every single merit badge and knows how to do all this stuff. And you have the troop rivalry kind of later on. I remember going to a camporee and hearing my boys go, oh my God, is that troop? Oh, really? You know, and so you guys got all those little pieces into the little that revolve around Scout life, kind of, to some degree.
Yeah, the assistant Scoutmaster Buddy is definitely also reminiscent. Like, Zach and I both had assistant Scoutmasters who were that kind of hit that mold of, like, they had come out of the military, come back to their town, wanted to be part of the troop again and just hang out and go camping and be a kid. And that was this dude Brad in my troop. And he came back and we just it was like, oh dude, you've been gone for 4 years. What's going on, dude? And and it was almost like he'd never been gone, but it was also like he had grown up so much,
Yeah.
But he was still the goofy kid I remember when I was in junior high and he was in high school, and then comes back as an adult.
So this book is obviously very influenced with the Washington State area. And as I said, we were up there.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I'm not even going to attempt the Tribe Casino's name in that particular. I don't want to do any disrespect to anybody because we really like doing the show. We don't want to get kicked off YouTube. But we were up there recently, and and even in the summary that I read, I could still get some of the artwork and stuff like that. And then, of course, in book one, which I read, I noticed not outside of the woods and a lot of the names and everything. So this is very heavily influenced in the Washington State, and that's kind of the perspective of the whole story. What does the rest of the country look like?
That's a very good question.
That is a great question.
Someday you might find out.
Yes.
But although no big spoilers, but the Junior Braves series is very much focused on this. But we are trying to get some sort of tales of the Junior Braves kind of thing to show what was going on in different parts of the country. So you might see that, you might not. But I think one of the biggest things with like zombie fiction in particular is like things either get too macro or too micro. So we're trying to kind of tread carefully, if not giving too much away, because the more you give away, the more you open up for people being like, well, that's stupid. That's not how that would happen. But if you keep it too small, then it's just like, it just becomes
very limited.
Well, I don't like,
I guess the ultimate
I don't care
question
about this small scale story.
with everything going on in your little area that you've mentioned in your stories, and I'm just throwing it out there just to see if maybe I can catch a hint of the future. With Fort Lewis and McCoy right down south, home of the 75th Rangers, I know that because I'm stationed there. Is that ever going to play a part into it?
You will wait a very long time for that answer.
Yes, you'll wait a while.
But I think you'll get that answer, maybe.
Yeah, you'll get that answer.
Fair enough.
To go back,
Let's just say we had to look at some Google Maps images to get some of the geography of that particular area down.
If you want to meet some of the guys from the base, I can give you a contact.
I might take you up on that.
I still have contacts there. That's easy enough.
I feel like because literally it will be 6 years from now before it really starts coming to a head, just because like we said, like the pace of the books, but yeah, we're going to explore a lot of that Olympia, Tacoma, Seattle, Puget Sound area.
That would be cool.
You'll see a lot more than what you've seen for sure.
Fair enough.
Joe had talked briefly about learning or using a few of the skills you have in this book. I mean, not only do you have skills, you have to go back to the scouting world. I was reading through it and reading the story of the two bears, and that's a Scoutmaster minute, at the end of a meeting. Essentially, that's what that is. And again, just to add in there, I think that's a great part to connect with everybody else, because anybody who's part of that life can see that's Scoutmaster minute. This is the how to do something. Here's the first aid. Here are the song we sung on some hike or some summer camp we went on. There was one panel in here, and I forgot the name of the character, but he yells Krav Maga when he's knocking the serum or whatever out of that guy's hand. Yeah. That's crazy, because that's something that I do to my daughter all the time. She's taking karate, and she'll come up and try to attack me, and I'll yell Krav Maga, and I'll knock her back. And so to read that was just hilarious to me, because it kind of fit into whatever I do in my real life too. So I'm trying to think any here. Look at my other questions up here. Why did you choose the "There Was a Bear" song in there? I mean, there's so many different Scout songs you could choose from. Why did you choose that one?
Greg, I'm not sure why you chose it, but that was a song that my Cub Scout troop sang. So I was like, oh, of course we have to use that song.
Yeah,
I don't know why Greg found that one.
It was just one of it's just one of the ones that like you just grow up singing, you know. I think I sung it in Scouts. I sung it in other outdoor organizations that I was part of growing up, or that I worked with outside of scouting later on in college, and that the kids would just like, that was the song that we sang. So it fits.
Yeah, and it's interesting because Charlie, the editor on the first book, he thought we wrote that song. He thought, he had no idea it was a thing. So there was almost an issue with like rights clearances. It was going to print, and no one else who had looked at it knew that was a song that, you know, people sang. So I guess luckily it's public domain, or like we didn't use enough of it to be a legal issue. But it almost like way late in the day, I think Greg, you might have even like mentioned it in passing. We're like, oh yeah, like I found the original lyrics to the Bear song, like from blah blah blah. And Charlie's like, wait, that's a real song? You guys didn't write it? And we're like, no, that's a scouting song. That's a song everyone in Scouts knows. And they're like, I have to make some phone calls. But luckily, it all worked out.
So I have to add, I'm sorry.
I was going to ask, what do you got?
Okay. I mean, I don't want to be rude and interrupt.
No.
Be funny. I've been drinking. All right. So, so you got you two as both writers, and then you kind of got Zach, right? Zach's your illustrator, artist.
Mm-hmm.
And he lives all the way out in Chicago.
Yep.
All right. So, again, I got to go back to a dynamic question, because you got you two. I get technology is very useful and good, but I also know that in a creative process, nothing beats 3 to 4 people in a room. So how does, and I've looked at the art in both of your books, and like it's stunning art. It looks like Washington, like you just see that, or that, let's just say Pacific North. Well, let's just go that route. So how are you all relating? Because I know, like, I'm dealing with an artist. I got to constantly explain why the Dismal Swamp doesn't look like a Louisiana swamp. I got to constantly, and it's not because he's in Richmond. That's only 2 hours from here. He doesn't have a clue, and it's not an ignorance part on his. He's not even from the state. So how are we putting this beautiful package together with great verbiage, great illustration? And I think this is his first graphic novel he's worked on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's actually a literature guy too, apparently. That's most of what his bio talks about. He,
for being an Eagle Scout, he seems like one of the least outdoorsy people I know. He is that Chicago suburban. But Greg and I, we essentially put together like image folders, mm-hmm. like on Google Docs. Like we'll put in like, this is what this looks like. This is what this looks like. Please draw, like, and it can be, we can put 100 images in there, but there will always be something where we're like, we have to like, and he'll send like process, like updates. Like first he does thumbnails. And that's a 200-page books. That's a lot of thumbnails. So there'll be times where we'll be like, no, like that needs to look different. Mm-hmm. Or like, here's what, like I mentioned earlier, like Google Maps images, like doing screenshots to be like, this is what this street looks like. And that's essentially the street they're walking down. So just do a variation of that.
Are you guys taking pictures of this stuff, or are you just?
Greg will go out with his camera.
So I've gone like for book 1, actually my wife and I drove up all around the area that book 1 is centered in and book 2 is centered in. It just took photos took a weekend trip and just took photos all up in that area. And then we live relatively, I mean, as you all were in Kent, you saw we're hop, skip, and a jump away from downtown Seattle on a good day. So, for book 3, A lot of that was just, running around and taking photos and stuff again of things that Mike and I had taken a look at if we couldn't get the Google images that we wanted for Zach. So, or just calling up people that I know in the city and just saying, hey, could you go down to, Pike and get this picture? I need this picture. And then send it to me. And they're like, okay, I'm not doing anything right now. So,
and that's something
kind of meet up for drinks, a meal, just kind of talk about the book, or is it always completely remote?
Sometimes, thanks to conventions, like we will be able to do like kind of in-person stuff to talk about certain issues. But yeah, it doesn't happen as nearly as much as we probably want it to happen. But that's pretty common for any like issue with like writers and artists where they're not like directly living in the same city. It's remote, and it's a lot of like phone calls and emails and Zoom meetings and Google Hangouts. But there's always going to be problems, especially because as writers, we have to remember that the artist is not in our head. So if we want something to look a certain way, we better damn well be specific in that script. Or if we don't care, just leave it. Like sometimes panel descriptions will just be like Johnny and Travis talking. Yeah. How they look, like where they're positioned, that's entirely up to Zach, because it doesn't matter to us. We trust his ability to tell the story through the images.
And that's the cool part is he's got such a great grasp. You said he's as a person who has literature background, he's got a really good idea of how to tell a story. He's a great visual storyteller, so he can take all those different ideas and put it together and tell that story. And sometimes the way that he tells the story is through his imagery is often sometimes better than the way that Mike and I have described it to him to tell the story for us, because he sees it either in a different layout that might seem more realistic, or we've described something so outrageously undoable for the artist that he has gone and said, how about I do it this way and just follow the KIS rule and keep it simple. Silly.
Yeah, there's been some times where like we've had it in our head. We're like, oh yeah, this is gonna look great. Like, oh, it's gonna be like, these two panels kind of exploded, and like we'll describe like this insane thing, which to our writers' brains, we're like, oh, of course, that's gonna look amazing when he draws it. But when he looks at it, he's gonna be like, this is not how art works. That you need to let me fix this. Like, do you know the left to right rule? Like it's like, nah, I don't know. Like, you figure it out. But
also, we found out that chain link fences are something that artists don't like to draw. So
artists hate chain link fences. So if you want to make your artist mad or drive them crazy, write nothing but chain link fences.
Chain link fence. God,
it's a compound surrounded by chain link fences.
Yeah, here I'm looking at the one panel right here. I mean, he has like just enough in the background just to say, "Hey, there's a chain link fence there." The
fun part about in book 2 you're looking at, if you take a look at that corporate building, if you're familiar with the Nintendo headquarters in the Pacific Northwest, the Seattle or North American Nintendo headquarters, it's the same building. Easter egg.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we said, we had planned to go to Emerald City Comic Con. We still got to go up there for the weekend. Everything we were trying to do for that weekend ended up getting shut down. Hey, we're going to go here. We're going to go to the Pop Culture Museum. That got shut down.
We did have one of the best meals you could possibly have in Seattle.
Oh, the expensive meal.
Whatever.
Where'd you guys go?
Well, he's always worried about money. We actually went to the Met.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah. Oh, I had a cost.
Okay, so the future of this book here. So book 2 got published in, what was it,
2018?
18?
2018.
Yeah, 2018. So 3 years apart between book 1 and book 2. Are we looking about the same pace for book 3? So we're looking about
yes, but at this point, with the way the industry is, who knows? Like, because so much is getting pushed back.
Mhm.
Just
Printing
and
schedules, shipping schedules, other things.
yeah,
like that. So everything.
like there's issue with like literally getting books printed because most of the printing's done in China. So who knows? Like I think realistically 2022 is most likely. But we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Everybody else, all the other books that get pushed back our book. The interesting thing too with Zach's art, and we didn't discuss this, was that like you see the book that in book one we have this like really great green wash, and that when Mike and I finished book one, wrote it, sent the book, and the book was complete with no color. It was going to be a black and white book. It would have been ready to go like relatively quick. Would you say, Mike, like within a year?
Yeah, I think it would have come out 2014. I think a whole year earlier, I believe.
Yeah, and then the color wash that Zach did, that he did the whole, hey guys, you want to see something really cool? Let me show you something really cool.
He's like, I've been experimenting with this new color wash technique. What do you guys think? And we're like, nah, we're good. Just black and white's fine. We really just want this book to come out now. And then he sent us the pages, yeah, and it's so beautiful. And we're like, oh god, how long is it going to take you to like do the whole book? He's like, it's going to take a while, but we're like, it'll be worth it. So that just kind of like on a whim, him testing it became like, that's like one of the hallmarks of the series is like that color wash.
Yeah.
Like nothing. And it's been copied since. We've noticed some other books that are similarly themed that are using it. Not to name names, they're good books, but they also like, you guys stole the color wash from us. So like book one is green, book two is blue.
Take care of those issues for you. This is blast it or stash it.
Yeah. So put them on blast.
So is there a reason why you changed to blue in the second book, or was it just to do a different color, or why?
Each book will have a different color wash.
Okay.
Each book.
And so on once the 5 books are done, you'll have a nice like rainbow of hardcovers on your bookshelf of different colored volumes.
Yeah, and it all kind of there'll be a theme at some point maybe that might be derived from those.
That brings up another interesting question. If this was to go to something other than comic books, would y'all want it to be a show, movie, animation? What do you would like to see this as?
That's such a great question. I think ideally we'd always wanted it to be like we could see the potential for that, but then also in the last 2 or 3 years, Mike, we've seen other things that are similarly veined jump.
There's so many, not similar in terms of story, but similar like kid ensemble cartoons that are like not kids, but not quite adult, but not even like middle grade, like Last Kids on Earth, which is a great series and a cool cartoon. You've got The Hollow. You've got was it Code Break? There's a ton of shows with that kind of young ensemble, like cartoon, like animated shows where I'm just like, Junior Braves, you would get nothing but Lost in the Sea if it became that. So now I'm like, movie. Let's do a movie. Sure, why not?
Animated or live action?
Live action. We'll do live action.
Yeah, live action. Yeah.
And even then, like, there's a lot of like live action, like movies that are similar. Like, I just tried to watch one on Netflix it was called Top of the World, which was like it was a camp zombie apocalypse, or I think it was alien invasion. Where I'm just like,
now, and I don't mean to interrupt, but in your book, is it a mutant or is it a zombie apocalypse?
It's a zombie mutant apocalypse.
Zombie mutant apocalypse.
Please explain the difference between the two.
I think the best way is our concept was more when we originally pitched it, we weren't thinking of zombies like as zombies like I love zombies are my jam. Like that is literally like I love zombies, but I didn't want this to necessarily be a zombie series. So Greg and I are also big fans of like 80s like Night of the Comet, like Day of the Night of the Creeps, like that kind of thing, where it's like infected, crazy monster mutant people. So that's more what our original like idea was. And honestly, like the zombie mutant thing was a compromise with the publisher, because they're like, no, you want to do zombies, like that's what people want, like that gives us the thing to market. Like Walking Dead is the most popular non-superhero comic in the world, like it's most, like, don't deny it, just like lean into it. You're already doing like that kind of thing, just like get over yourself, make them hideous zombie mutants. And you get to have it both ways. Like we get to not have to adhere to zombie canon, when we also get to like play with like hideous mutant, like crazies fiction.
And how they sold us on that whole thing too is having Mike and I sit down and play with the editorial team for a few hours playing Left 4 Dead on Xbox. Well, we discussed the whole entire, like,
what a way to convince you of something, make you play a video game.
Yeah, just like, hey, let's just sit down and play some video games, and then okay, I guess, yeah, we could see.
So is book 3 in the can? This waiting for printing, or is this you got a little bit left to go on until book 3's done?
He's still drawing. And Oni's finding ways to kind of like help speed his process along. So he has like someone helping flatten and some other stuff to kind of help him be able to focus more on getting the art done. And then someone else will take it and finish it and get it, or like flatten and get it ready. And it's a lot of the side of the business, which I just do not understand because I'm a writer. So, but yeah, it's kind of out of our hands. We are waiting to start writing book 4. Everything's outlined. We're just waiting to get to script for 4 and 5.
Yeah. So,
do you have more questions on Junior Braves, Joe, before we jump into their future projects, or what else?
No, I'll be honest with you. I'm almost embarrassed because I read book 1 because this interview was supposed to happen a lot more before now. So I'll also apologize for that. 2, it just kind of fell off the radar with weekly pulls and everything else, and just haven't had a chance. So I'm definitely going to be ordering book 2. I look forward to it. But and to ask the kind of hard question tonight, is a 3-year turnaround pull the book, does that bring you in and out of an audience, or does that capture an audience for a long span of time?
I think that's a really good question.
I'm a genius.
It's hard. I think the kids, like that kind of 10 or 11-year-old who we got with book 1 and probably book 2 are going to age out, and we might lose them. But kids picking up, like when books 3 and books 4 are out, and they see it and they're interested in it, they have previous books to buy. They'll buy like books 1. It's like, oh, there's a lot of books in this series, I'll start with book 1. They don't know that it came out, when they're an infant. So they'll read book
the whole Harry Potter model.
Yeah, that's essentially the model.
The same thing. I don't know if it was 3 years or 2 years, but there was a great span, and it actually developed a cult following. Is that kind of what we're looking for here?
That's what we're hoping, and in the reality, that is, like graphic novel series, they don't start picking up steam until there's at least 3 books out. So like 1 and 2 are great, but it really won't start building a core audience until like the 3rd book is out.
Yeah.
And then you've got them, and the time in between books seems like less for the majority of the audience. So it'll be less of an issue. So right now, definitely an issue. 2 years from now, less of an issue, hopefully.
On the flip side of the younger kids aging out, those like the 10 to 15-year-old kids, we have the kids that are like 15 that pick up the book when they're a little bit older, and as you said before, it's also a book that an adult can read too. So I just had a couple of our fans that just literally, they're turning 18 this year, and they're like, I can't wait till the next book comes out, because their parents are like, hey, is there anything that you guys can send us for our kid's birthday or whatever, yada yada yada, and the DMs and stuff on our.
So we're legitimately not trying to push the public. We're trying to create an actual fan base here. Would that be correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys, you heard it here first. Help these guys out. Like, no, don't help them out. Help every other kid out there. They need to read this book. Again, cool zombies / mutants. Goonies versus Walking Dead kind of meshed together, the whole 9 yards. It literally delivered on every level. Definitely let them know. Let's ask them about their future projects. Huey.
Yeah, I know you have something that's actually connecting into your books here. That's going to be coming out really soon. Or did it get released, or is it still in the process of trying to get finished up?
That's also a good question. I think it's in the process of getting finished up, where Mike and I have gotten pictures of the product.
Yeah, so there's a Junior Braves tabletop RPG coming out in the next few weeks, we think.
Yeah.
So since people are playing tabletop RPGs now,
Yep.
You were a nerd in high school 20 years ago for playing them, but now all the cool kids do. So there's a Junior Braves module of the Kids on Bikes RPG system. So it's focused on young players. Almost the dynamic of a play group is almost the same as the Junior Braves. Is you'll have an adult as the storyteller, who's like the tribe master, walking these younger players through an adventure set in the Junior Braves universe. It's super exciting. We've seen the rough draft of the book, and it was supposed to have like a huge launch this summer, like Dragon Con being pushed on all these different things. Obviously that's not happening. So if people are interested in it, like contact your local game store and look for it, have them order it. Luckily, thanks to technology, people can play RPGs like remotely. And yeah, so that's really exciting. It's one of those things where it's so exciting to have a thing based on something you created that you had very little to do with its creation. Like, because we really didn't do much for the role-playing game. Like, they loved it. Or Greg can talk more to the origin of that.
So Mike, Gremlin Legions, I'll go by his development name. So Gremlin Legions and Renegade Games, who do Kids on Bikes, or Renegade Games who does Kids on Bikes, had Gremlin Legions take a look at the Junior Braves books as he was a fan, and take a look at the reskinning of the book of the game module, and just kind of contacted back and forth through the same way that Mike and Zach and I all do everything, through emails and phone calls and stuff. And hey, would this make sense? Would this make sense? And we just kind of like bounced ideas. He bounced ideas through me, and I bounced them back to the guys. And we kind of just came back and said, okay, these things kind of make sense. And as I was giving him the feedback, he's sending me stuff from the rest of the team from Kids on Bikes. And as a fan of that game system, I'm kind of freaking out, because I'm looking at their notes on this thing that we're a part of, and they're like, oh yeah, we really like this, and maybe we'll put this in our next module. And it's like, what? So that's kind of weird to be like sitting back, having like Mike said, creating something that had become something else, and our influence was just that much, but it also influenced something else down the chain in another way. So now there's going to be these people playing this other game system that just slightly got tweaked next year on something, and they're going to pick up both of them and say, oh wow, this is really cool, look what came out.
Yeah, it's a weird, like, the power of approval. Like, we had to approve it, and we're like, well, you can't do this unless we say it's okay. And of course we're going to say okay, but it's this weird kind of like, no one's ever cared enough about a thing we've done to ask us if they could do something else with it.
Did y'all go?
But you held off for a little bit, though. You didn't just go, yes.
Approved.
No, we kind
I was
of
like, you need to change this language in there. I don't like it. We don't say that in Junior Braves.
well, no,
Yeah, so it's super exciting.
it is true though, because there was some stuff language wise that like kids on bikes language, the way that they talk in the game module for kids on bikes, and the way that the Junior Braves handbook, quote unquote, was put together, they're totally different. So just the way that they
Well,
they
definitely shoot us the link to where we can get that game, and also, of course, where we can get caught up on the junior, so we can put that down in the description. But other than the game, do you have anything else going on? You all want
Before we jump into that, Mike, we have a question in the chat from Samuel David. Are you there, Mike? Or are you frozen? Okay, you're there. You've been so still. You're like Drax, standing there eating his egg.
like tracks.
What's the question Samuel David had in the chat?
I can't hear Huey if he's talking to me.
Oh,
okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Samuel David,
no
are you
audio
guys
from
going to
so-
do any book signings once LCS are open back up? I don't
Mike,
think there's
good one job.
here.
Good job, Mike.
yes. Once it's hard because once the RPG is out, then yeah, we will definitely like do signings and do events. Once stores open up again. Samuel David, I don't know where you're based out of, so I don't know if that would be anywhere near where you are. And his second question is if there'll be any cons this year. I honestly don't think. I think cons are done for 2020. I think even the ones that
Baltimore Comic Con is still on.
when is it scheduled for?
It.
October.
Yeah, it's. I know a lot of a lot of cons move to October or November, but I think honestly, if they do, this is my. I don't think it's controversial, but this is me pontificating on. If conventions are going to happen this year, they're going to be rescaled. I think cons are going to be scaled way down. I think you're going to see them switch venues, or they're going to keep the original venues, and just like you'll see everything much more spread out, and you'll see a lot of they'll cut down vendors, they'll cut down capacity for a lot of stuff, just so there's less people cramming in places. And I think you won't. I don't think New York City is going to happen this year. As disappointing as that is, WonderCon got rescheduled, I think, to November. I don't think that's going to happen. But I think for the next year, any cons that happen are going to drastically rescale themselves to just have fewer people, because there's already too many conventions as there is, and this was a good way to literally like cull the herd of the massive amounts of conventions that are just eating themselves and eating the money out of artists and Artist Alley.
We're probably going to see.
Me and Mike actually make a joke. We call Baltimore Comic Con, we call it the Baltimore HIV. HIV. We go every year because we're right here in Virginia. And it doesn't make any sense for San Diego or New York for us. I went to Emerald City because I also flip comic books and do auctions on the side. And that's the money I use for that. And I have to agree, but however, I have to kind of disagree at the same time. There is some enjoyment for me going to the Tidewater Comic Con, super small Comic Con, a couple of local wrestlers. Like, it's small, it's not huge, but it does satisfy a very niche market. And I've been both fences on the side of Comic Cons where I've bashed them and I've praised them at the same time. I do believe that does bring a sense of community together. But my first argument has always been that it's everybody says it's a convention. No, it's a conference. We should be networking, meeting each other, find out how to collaborate, how to do better things, especially on distribution. Let's throw that out there. And asking those questions, the what if questions. What do you all think about that concept?
No, I think smaller conventions are definitely they're kind of like the the heart and soul of the industry, if you will. I mean, I know a lot of the stuff that I went to as a kid with my dad were always those type of small conventions, hotel conventions, high school conventions, or they always had a wrestling ring or something like that. But the kind of things that I like to go to, either locally or the ones that I'll try to fly out of state for and hit up, are those smaller types of things, because they're unique to the area. They bring a different crowd of people to something that they're not going to be going to the larger conventions that are out there, that everyone wants to go to, but there's a cost barrier to that, right? You got to buy a plane ticket, you got to get a hotel room, you got to spend all that extra money, and you don't get to buy anything at the show that you want to get. You go to something that's local and close to home, and you have the ability to go, and your wallet is a lot wealthier, if you will. You can spread that money out amongst the tables, to the different vendors, to the different creators, artists. You can pick up that weird comic book that you wouldn't have normally bought, but you can because you're close to home, and you can help that local creator, that creator that you've never seen or heard of before. And that's kind of why I like the smaller shows, because it gives you that opportunity as a shopper. In that sense, as a creator, I love those because it gives us an opportunity to talk to people. We're not waiting for people to herd through and make their way down the aisle. People are coming to the show because they want to see people. They want to talk to people. They have questions about the comics. How did they get made? What is this thing? And what is this thing I've never heard of before? And we have that opportunity to talk to them. And not necessarily does every conversation lead to a sale, but I think most times we get somebody that's interested, and they're interested in either creating a comic, or interested in talking about comics, or interested in saying, hey, you know what? Have you checked out this store that is local to my area that might want to carry your book? And I think more often than not have Mike, Zach, and I been able to get our books into places that we wouldn't have normally been able to do because of someone else networking for us.
Yeah, like I said, when me and Mike, we are the guy that looks like Abe Lincoln below me. We often attend Comic Cons together, especially the local ones. And we walked into Ryan Otley. Right? He doesn't know Ryan Otley. And there he is. And they did, well, Mike, why don't you tell the story? You haven't really said a whole lot. When we met Mike, and I was like, oh, you're right. Why are you not surrounded? Like, it amazed me.
Yeah, well, it was, what was it? It was Tidewater or Hampton.
Tidewater Comic Con, yeah.
Yeah.
Metal Shark.
Just sitting there. We had read that he was going to charge like $40-$50 for a signature. I walked up with a couple books, started talking him up, and he was a nice guy. And a couple creators like yourself were right next to him. They created Metal Shark. I don't know if you guys heard.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the nicest guys. I'm a big Shark fan. I'm a big heavy metal music fan. So this is right up my alley. Start talking stuff like that,
Is it? God, I'm trying to remember the name. Walter O'Steele and
Kevin?
Bob France.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
They're good guys.
Good guys.
Yeah, that's like I like the long box cons. Those are the small shows where you can always count on people are there to buy comics.
Mm-hmm.
Where like you look at like Denver Pop Culture Con, like they literally changed the name to better reflect the show. It's a pop culture convention. Like they moved their show to Thanksgiving weekend, which is a bold choice, which I think is in a way I respect it, because I think it's an acknowledgement that conventions are changing. If it happens, it is going to be a smaller scale show, because they chose like the worst travel holiday of the year. So people aren't coming into Denver for that show. They're coming to Denver for Thanksgiving with their family, or they already live in Denver and they're going to maybe go to this convention. So I think it's going to rescale. And I think it also means there's going to be a bigger focus on comics, because the cast of whatever hit sci-fi show right now is not flying Thanksgiving weekend to Denver to appear at a comic convention. Like, so there's going to be a better focus on the stuff that I am more interested in people being interested in, which is comics and art and crafting, like even like some of just the artist alley stuff of people not even just doing like 2D art, of people doing like 3-dimensional woodcuts, like stuff that is interesting, like art that, paid to be there, and hopefully will make their money back to pay for creating more art. That's conventions.
So moving forward,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
into creating more art, you guys have future projects outside of Junior Braves of the Apocalypse that you guys want to talk about and kind of promote right now?
Sure. So outside of Junior Braves, I stepped out of my my children's books and put on my big boy pants and wrote a very sci-fi and out there adult style comic with my friend Travis Webb and our friend and with art by Brett Kelly, and it's called Starlight. And we ran a Kickstarter during probably the worst time in the history of Kickstarters, because you could say that because this is literally the worst time in the history of Kickstarters.
Or the best. Everybody's home, so they're spending a lot of time online. Like I don't know.
It's true. I mean, but at first we were. I mean, and Mike could probably attest to watching it from the sidelines. But at first there was the scare, like, would it fund? Would it actually work out? And we had a successful Kickstarter, and really the way that Travis and I set it up, it wasn't really for us. We took a wash on it as creators, because we put everything into the Brett camp, because as everything shifted for the rest of the year, we could see with the current situation with conventions and signings and everything else, and Brett being an artist who is in this gig economy, working on projects that were getting shut down because they just weren't going to print and weren't going to press, and he wasn't able to go to the conventions. He was losing money with Emerald City and other things like that. We needed to get him stable, and that was where we were just like, no, we're going to change this whole entire pie that we built, and we get nothing. Everything goes to making these books and going to Brett. So that's kind of, if you take a look at our Kickstarter, that's where it all went to and how it worked out. And we're just like, every time people were like, what's your goal? Making sure Brett's taken care of, and I don't think we could ever, I'm pretty sure Mike and I are in agreement. You always want to make sure you take care of your artists, take care of your team, and make sure that they're part of whatever you're doing, and you wouldn't be able to do what you're doing without them. So, but what we're doing now that we had a successful Kickstarter with book number 1 of Starlight, we're already working on book number 2 for that. In the interim of that, Travis and I had started a podcast, Narrative Gunslingers, as kind of a promotional piece to promote the book in the Kickstarter, and it became a tier level in the Kickstarter to have people come on and be part of the Kickstarter, or be part of the podcast as a Kickstarter tier, as an award. And actually, as we're moving forward, we've actually had several people jump on at that level, and then we've booked a lot more guests for the future to be on our basically the Kickstarter, the podcast is all about taking a look at stories and taking a look at their narrative from different perspectives, and how that helped the person who's on the show become the creative person they are.
So in terms of comics, I've got a big project that's supposed to be coming out in a couple months, which I will talk about more once it's officially announced. But I'm also working on a Kickstarter book with my best friend from high school, who he's a guy who loved comics, and he drew comics. Like we grew up in the 90s, and he has his own very unique art style. Always had, and then he just stopped doing art for like 15 years. Like he got married, had kids, like had a day job. And then he just decided that he really wanted to get back into drawing comics. So like we teamed up and we took a character that he created when he was 12, who is the most 90s character you can imagine. His name is the Mutant Warrior. He has a chainsaw for one arm and a snake for the other. And he's got a jet boot for one leg and a giant Looney Tune style magnet for his other. And he is not. He has an eye patch and a cybernetic eye and a spike mohawk. A mohawk literally made out of metal spikes.
Is this a parody or is this legit?
It is. The way we're looking at it is it's like 90s Image Comics meets the movie The Wrestler, where we've got this character. We meet him at the height of his superhero career, and then we flash forward. Times have changed. He is now a middle-aged washout.
You know, so what? Read that. I want to read what my future's like.
It's I'm so excited to see it because, like I said, his art style. He developed his own art style when he was a teenager, and then he's never changed. So it's this. Literally, his art looks like nothing else. It is amazingly weird. His name is Damon Abdallah, and the book is called The Mutant Warrior. And we're probably going to launch it on Kickstarter, probably maybe in June or July.
Well, definitely, please give us the links tonight. So when this goes up, we can put it in the descriptions. We want to support all these projects. This sounds awesome. Chainsaw, snake hands. I'm digging it. It sounds like an 80s metal song from, where something's airbrushed on the side of a van. Yeah, I want to see this.
It's pretty amazing.
Okay, any last questions before we wrap it? Anything else you guys want to promote before we get out of here tonight?
I've because this is the age we live in. I have a podcast also called Burn After Pitching. It's a comedy pitching podcast where we have a panel of writers, creators, actors, performers, podcasters, just whoever wants to be on. We come on and we all pitch ideas on a different subject per episode. We've done like holiday crossover movies. We've done musicals. The musical episode just went up. We have a new episode coming out in just a few weeks, pitching board games and so it's all different. We cover different topics, just different funny people coming up with funny ideas and tearing them apart.
I think I've got a podcast to listen to now. I was getting kind of bored with the other one. So.
Comedians. That's awesome.
Okay, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. We definitely want to thank Mike and Greg for coming on tonight, talking about Junior Braves, talking about their future projects. And we definitely want to see you guys back on here, maybe if you're trying to get those projects rolling again to help promote that a little bit more. Again, it is Junior Braves of the Apocalypse. They have book 1 and book 2 out. They can find them Amazon. You can find them pretty much anywhere online. You can find it, or you can catch them at a convention when those open back up. Like I said, I'm 43 years old. These are good books for me. If you're into scouting or any kind of thing like that, youth group, like I said, you may not connect with the youth character, but for me, I connect with the older characters who are leading these boys and trying to make sure these kids are safe. So definitely go on, check out Junior Braves.
Jelly sandwich ever.
The best peanut butter jelly sandwich ever. And as always, remember, a brave is brave.
A brave is brave.
Guys, later. Thanks, guys, for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.